Daniel Carter adjusted his baseball cap as he pushed open the glass door of Waffle Haven. The familiar scent of butter, maple syrup, and coffee enveloped him. For once, he wasn't here as the owner of the successful chain that had expanded to 15 locations across 3 states. Today, he was just another customer. He had chosen this location, the original shop where it all began, because recent reports showed a concerning dip in both profits and customer satisfaction. Corporate investigations had turned up nothing conclusive. Time to see for himself that a young woman with a name tag, reading Mia, greeted him cheerfully. Daniel ordered the heavenly stack with extra blueberries and black coffee, paid with cash, and took a corner booth with a clear view of the kitchen and register. The manager, Rick Palmer, barked orders while scrolling through his phone. 2 employees emerged from the kitchen, their hushed conversation drifting to Daniel's booth. "I can't believe what they did to Ethan," Mia whispered to her coworker Jordan. "He was just doing what any honest person would do. Reporting theft from the register should have gotten Rick fired, not Ethan demoted," Jordan replied. "The worst part is that corporate swept it under the rug. Rick must have friends in high places. He takes money from the register when he thinks no one's watching, 20 here, 50 there." Daniel's blood ran cold. His food arrived, delivered by a thin young man with dark circles under his eyes, Ethan. When Daniel thanked him by name, Ethan's eyes widened at the personal inquiry from a stranger. "I'm fine, just working a double shift," Ethan said softly before Rick's voice boomed across the restaurant, ordering him to clear tables and mop the kitchen. Daniel watched Rick barely lift a finger, yet constantly criticize Ethan. When executives in suits entered, Rick's demeanor changed instantly. One of them was James Hoffman, the regional operations director, who clapped Rick on the shoulder like an old friend. The pieces slid into place. If Hoffman was protecting Rick, no wonder the theft reports had gone nowhere. When Ethan accidentally dropped plates, Rick descended on him. "That's coming out of your paycheck, you worthless—" "It was an accident," Mia interjected. "Did I ask for your input?" Rick snapped. "Get back to the register before I write you up too." The executives chuckled, returning to their meeting without a second glance. Daniel's mind raced. He built Waffle Haven from nothing, working 16-hour days, creating not just great food, but a workplace where people were treated with dignity. That vision had been corrupted. Daniel left a generous tip for Ethan. He made his decision. Tomorrow, Daniel Carter would disappear, and a new employee desperately in need of a job would apply to work at Waffle Haven. Justice was coming. 3 days later, Daniel found himself tying on a Waffle Haven apron. His designer watch was replaced with a cheap timepiece, his tailored clothes exchanged for off-the-rack basics. The transformation from business owner to struggling new hire named Dan Miller was complete. Rick barely glanced at his resume before hiring him. Throughout training, Daniel observed Rick's management style closely. When the register grew full, Rick made a show of counting money, but Daniel noticed how his hands moved too quickly, how he angled away from the security camera. "The new guy, Dan, right?" Rick announced. "You'll be shadowing Ethan today. He knows all the grunt work." As they worked together, Daniel carefully built rapport with Ethan. "Been at Waffle Haven long?" he asked. "Almost 2 years. Used to be on track for assistant manager until—" Ethan stopped himself, shaking his head. Later that afternoon, Hoffman arrived. He and Rick disappeared into the back office, emerging 23 minutes later, looking smug. They inspected the restaurant, and when they reached the area Ethan had just mopped, Hoffman deliberately dragged his shoe across the floor. "Ethan," Rick called out, "what do you call this?" "The floor is still dirty. I just mopped that area, sir." "Well, it's not good enough," Hoffman replied coldly. "This kind of mediocrity is exactly why you're still at entry level after 2 years." As Hoffman prepared to leave, Daniel watched Rick casually hand him a small envelope that disappeared into Hoffman's inner pocket. After Hoffman left, Rick announced, "Ethan, you're back at 5 a.m. tomorrow for the opening shift." "But I'm closing tonight," Ethan protested. "That's less than 6 hours between shifts. Should have thought about that before doing substandard work. Unless you want to quit, there's a stack of applications on my desk." As Daniel clocked out, his mind raced. The corruption was systematic, deliberate, and cruel. In the parking lot, He watched Rick climb into a brand new luxury SUV that a single location manager definitely couldn't afford. Tomorrow, the trap would be set. For the next week, Daniel immersed himself in his role, arriving early and staying late. He performed every menial task without complaint, establishing himself as reliable but unremarkable. The perfect fly on the wall point one evening, cleaning the kitchen after closing, Daniel created an opportunity for private conversation with Ethan. You're really good at this job. Seems like you should be running the place instead of getting the worst shifts. Ethan's laugh was hollow. I used to think that too. What happened? The register skimming. Ethan's eyes widened in alarm. How did you? I've worked enough food service to recognize the signs, Daniel said with a shrug. Managers who count the drawer alone, missing inventory, numbers that never add up. Relief washed over Ethan's face. After a moment, he confided, it started small. 20 here and there. I noticed because the counts were off on my shifts, and I was worried I'd be blamed. So I reported it to corporate, had dates, amounts, even photos. Thought I was doing the right thing. But let me guess, instead of thanking you, they punished you. Ethan nodded bitterly. Hoffman himself came down, had a closed-door meeting with Rick. Next day, I was demoted, lost my path to assistant manager, and suddenly had the worst schedule imaginable. Why would they protect someone stealing from the company? Ethan looked genuinely afraid. Because Rick isn't the only one. Hoffman's taking a cut. Store managers skim cash and adjust inventory numbers, report false numbers to corporate, keeping a percentage and passing the rest up the chain. Regional directors like Hoffman cover for them during audits. It's not just our location, it's systematic across the region. Over the next few days, Daniel expanded his investigation. He volunteered for trash duty to access discarded receipts, offered to help with inventory to document discrepancies, and secretly photographed sales reports before Rick altered them. He discovered Rick wasn't just skimming cash. He was marking premium inventory as spoiled only to sell it normally and pocket the difference. Vendor invoices were doctored to show higher costs, with a margin going into Rick's pocket. The opportunity to set a trap came with the upcoming weekend promotion, the shop's anniversary celebration with expected record sales. On Friday evening after shift, Daniel let himself in using a duplicated key. He replaced the disabled security system with an identical device that would actually record and transmit footage to his private server. He placed UV powder on the safe dial and marked certain large bills in the register. Saturday morning arrived bright and clear. By 9 o'clock, the restaurant was packed. Cash registers rang constantly as Rick made frequent trips to help at the register, each time with certain large bills seeming to disappear. Around 11, Ethan arrived, looking exhausted. You're late, Rick snapped, though Ethan was actually 2 minutes early. The lunch rush hit like a tidal wave. At one point, Rick actually removed an entire stack of 20s while pretending to organize the drawer. Around 2, Hoffman made his appearance, circulating through the restaurant while subtly finding fault with everything Ethan did. Hoffman and Rick disappeared into the office for 15 minutes. Daniel, watching the modified security feed on his phone, captured their entire interaction. Rick counting out bills and passing them to Hoffman, who tucked them into an envelope that at 4 o'clock, disaster struck. Ethan, carrying a tray loaded with platters, stumbled slightly as he passed Rick. Nothing spilled, but Rick saw an opportunity. Are you drunk on the job? He demanded loudly. Or just incompetent? Neither, sir. Just haven't had a break in 7 hours. Breaks are for employees who earn them. The final straw came an hour later. Rick and Hoffman approached Ethan as he cleaned tables. We need to talk about your performance today, Rick announced. Multiple errors on register counts, slow service times, and customer complaints about your attitude. What complaints? Ethan asked wearily. I've been polite to everyone. Are you calling me a liar? Hoffman nodded solemnly. Customer satisfaction is our priority, Ethan. You know that's what Mr. Carter built this company on. Something in Ethan finally snapped. 2 years of abuse culminated in this moment. This is bullshit, he said quietly. What did you just say to me? Rick sputtered. I said this is bullshit. Ethan repeated louder, dropping his cleaning rag. There are no customer complaints. You're just looking for another excuse to write me up, so you can eventually fire me without unemployment benefits. The restaurant had gone silent. "That's it," Rick sputtered. "You're fired. Get your things and get out." "No need," Ethan replied with sudden calm. "I quit." He untied his apron and placed it neatly on the table. Then, looking directly at Hoffman, he added, I used to admire this company. I thought Daniel Carter built something special, a place that valued honesty and hard work." What a joke. Without waiting for a response, Ethan walked out, head held high for the first time in months. After his shift, Daniel remained in the parking lot. Once the closing staff left, Rick re-entered the building alone. Through the security feed, Daniel watched Rick go straight to the registers, emptying them completely, then move to the safe, transferring bundles of cash to a duffel bag. Far more than the day's legitimate profits. Daniel smiled grimly. Tomorrow would be a day of reckoning. Sunday morning, Daniel Carter walked into Waffle Haven dressed in a tailored suit, his posture and demeanor completely transformed. "Good morning," he said pleasantly. "Please tell Rick I need to see him immediately. Also call in everyone scheduled for today. We're having an emergency staff meeting in 30 minutes. I'm sorry, sir, but who should I say is asking?" Daniel smiled. "Just tell him the owner is here." Within minutes, a disheveled Rick appeared. "Mr. Carter, we weren't expecting—" "Save it, Rick. Just gather your staff. Conference room, 30 minutes. By 9 o'clock, the conference room was filled with bewildered employees, including Rick and a hastily summoned Hoffman. "Thank you all for coming," Daniel began. "Some of you know me as Daniel Carter, founder and owner of Waffle Haven. Others, his eyes swept over those who had worked with him, know me as Dan Miller, the new hire." Gasps filled the room. Mia's hand flew to her mouth while Jordan paled visibly. "For the past week, I've been working alongside you, experiencing firsthand what happens when people think no one is watching. What I discovered was both disappointing and infuriating." He tapped his tablet, and the wall-mounted screen lit up with security footage showing Rick removing cash from the register. "This is from yesterday's anniversary promotion." The footage continued, showing Rick counting money into an envelope and handing it to Hoffman. "And this is particularly interesting." The screen split to show financial records with discrepancies highlighted. Systematic theft, not just from registers, but doctored inventory reports, falsified invoices, manipulation of staffing hours. All told, Mr. Palmer has stolen approximately $157,000 from this location alone over the past 18 months. Rick jumped to his feet. You can't prove." "Sit down, Rick," Daniel commanded. "I have more than enough proof, including these." The screen showed images of marked bills now photographed in Hoffman's possession. "But you know what bothers me even more than the theft? It's how you treated your staff, particularly those who tried to do the right thing." Daniel turned to Hoffman. "When Ethan Mercer reported suspicious activity following our company handbook protocol, you didn't investigate properly. Instead, you conspired with Rick to punish Ethan, demote him, and make his working conditions intolerable. Why? Because he threatened your scheme." Hoffman rose, attempting dignity. "Mr. Carter, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding, James." Daniel placed a USB drive on the table. "This contains every piece of evidence, including recordings of your phone conversations with Rick, where you explicitly discuss hiding the theft from Carter and warning each other about potential visits." Rick, seeing the writing on the wall, tried a different tack. "It wasn't just us. There are others involved, higher up." "I know," Daniel interrupted. "Your scheme reaches into corporate headquarters. Don't worry, I'll be addressing that tomorrow. But today my focus is on this location and the people who've suffered under your leadership." Daniel turned to address the entire staff. "Effective immediately, Rick Palmer and James Hoffman are terminated from Waffle Haven. Security is waiting outside to escort them from the premises, and police have been provided with all relevant evidence for criminal charges." 2 uniformed officers appeared at the door. "You can't do this," Hoffman protested. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Daniel smiled coldly. "Actually, I know exactly who I'm dealing with. As of this morning, I've spoken with the board of directors. Those friends in high places you thought would protect you, they're scrambling to save themselves now that the evidence is public. You've been abandoned, gentlemen." As the officers escorted Rick and Hoffman out, Daniel turned to the remaining staff. I owe all of you an apology. I failed you by not seeing what was happening in my own company. That changes today. He addressed each employee individually, acknowledging their situations and assuring them that changes were coming. As the meeting concluded, Daniel called out, Mia, do you happen to have Ethan's address? There's someone I need to visit. The apartment complex where Ethan lived was modest. Daniel climbed the stairs to Unit 17B and knocked firmly. When the door opened, Ethan's expression shifted from confusion to shock. Mr. Carter? Or Dan? I don't understand. May I come in? I think we have a lot to discuss. Ethan stepped aside, gesturing toward a small living room. Job applications sat on a coffee table alongside an open laptop. I owe you an explanation, Daniel began. And much more than that, an apology. Over 15 minutes, Daniel explained his undercover operation, the evidence he'd gathered, and what had transpired that morning. Ethan listened in stunned silence. So Rick and Hoffman are really gone? Ethan finally asked. Gone and facing criminal charges, along with 3 executives at corporate who were part of the scheme. The entire regional management structure is being rebuilt. Ethan shook his head slowly. I spent 2 years thinking I was crazy, that maybe I'd imagined things. They made me doubt myself at every turn. That's what corrupt systems do, Daniel said softly. They gaslight the honest people while protecting the dishonest ones. But that's over now. Well, good luck with everything, Ethan said, clearly assuming the conversation was wrapping up. Actually, that's not why I'm here. Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. This is a job offer, but not just your old job back. Ethan opened it and scanned the document, his eyes widening. Assistant manager? With this salary? This is more than double what I was making before. Daniel nodded. With a clear path to store manager within a year if you want it. The location needs someone with integrity, someone who knows right from wrong and has the courage to stand up for it, even when it costs them. Ethan's hand trembled as he set the letter down. I don't know what to say. Say you'll consider it. The store opens at 10 tomorrow. The staff knows you'll be coming if you accept. What about Jordan and the others who went along with Rick? Jordan's been given a second chance with certain conditions. He was wrong, but I understand why he made those choices. The others will be evaluated individually. But the culture is changing starting today. Ethan stared at the offer letter before meeting Daniel's gaze with newfound determination. I accept. On one condition, Mia deserves recognition too. She was the only one who consistently stood up for me. Daniel smiled. Already done. If you become assistant manager, Mia will be your shift supervisor with a substantial raise. She doesn't know yet. I wanted to secure you first. For the first time since Daniel had known him, Ethan's face broke into a genuine smile. Then I'm in. The following morning, Ethan walked into Waffle Haven wearing a crisp new button-down shirt. The staff fell silent as he entered. Mia rushed forward, enveloping him in a tight hug. I can't believe you came back, she whispered. Neither can I, Ethan admitted. But it's going to be different now. For all of us. What followed was a whirlwind week. Daniel remained on site, personally overseeing the transition. New systems were implemented to prevent future theft. Employees received long overdue raises. Scheduling became fair and transparent. Ethan took to management with natural ease, his previous hardships giving him a unique perspective on leadership. He was firm but fair, never forgetting what it felt like to be on the receiving end of poor management. 1 month later, Daniel returned for a follow-up visit. The transformation was remarkable. Customer satisfaction scores had rebounded, staff turnover had plummeted, and the atmosphere had completely changed. Laughter and genuine camaraderie had replaced the tension and fear. Quarterly profits are up 17%, Ethan reported, even with the increased wages and benefits. Turns out treating people well is good for business, Daniel remarked with satisfaction. Who knew? As they walked through the restaurant, Daniel watched Ethan interact with the staff, offering guidance to new hires, praising good work, addressing issues directly but kindly. Jordan, now working as a line cook, gave Ethan a respectful nod as they passed. You know, Daniel said, when I built this company, this was exactly what I envisioned. A place where people could be proud to work, where honesty and hard work were valued above all else. Sometimes you have to lose something to remember why you valued it in the first place. Ethan replied thoughtfully. Daniel smiled, clapping Ethan on the shoulder as he prepared to leave. Keep this up, and we'll be discussing a regional position for you by this time next year. One step at a time, Ethan laughed. For now, I'm just happy to be making waffles that people love in a place that feels like home again. As Daniel pushed through the front doors, he glanced back at the bustling restaurant. At Mia, cheerfully greeting customers, at Jordan focused intently on perfecting orders, and at Ethan moving confidently between stations offering help where needed. His company was back on track, stronger and more resilient for having faced corruption and emerged victorious. Most importantly, Waffle Haven was once again a haven for both its customers and its employees, just as he had always intended it to be.